Okay. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody to the Solano360 Implementation Committee meeting for today. Do you want to call roll, clerk?
Yes. Supervisor Jim Spearing. Present. Councilmember Pippin Dew.
Present.
Councilmember Hermes Sunga.
He's on the phone. Yeah, you know. We got you, Herm.
And Chairwoman Erin Hannigan.
Present. All right, this will be an opportunity. Our first item on the agenda is public comment, and this is an opportunity to speak on the topic at hand, and that is the Solano360 presentation today, which is in the agenda. If we have any callers on the line or anybody in the audience that does want to speak publicly on this item, you can come forward. If you're here, we'd like you to state your name. If you are on the phone, again, we will unmute you all, and you can state your name and make your comments. You'll have 3 minutes to do so. And so with that, I'll ask if there's anybody here in the chambers that would like to speak during public comment in regards to Solano360. Seeing none, we'll move to our callers on the line. Do we have any callers on the line that want to speak in regards to Solano360? Please state your name, and you've got 3 minutes. All right, hearing no callers, so we'll move on to item number 2, and I understand Team A is Lewis Plan Communities, is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. We have just an introduction slide, and then we'll turn it over to the JLL IRG team, the first group. So,
thanks, James.
Not a problem. Okay, the first slide just is an overview of what we're doing today. We'll receive 2 presentations from teams, and with the goal of considering this committee to forward a recommendation to the Solano County Board of Supervisors to enter into an exclusive right to negotiate agreement with the selected development team. Next slide, please. This is just an overview. So the offering as part of the request for proposals was 111.7 acres of 149 acres that the county owns at the fairgrounds in Vallejo. The blue area indicates the area of offering. Next slide, please. And just the background, we issued an RFQ in November. We had 4 submittals, and we shortlisted down to 2 by recommendation of this committee. The two teams were Lewis Plan Communities and Industrial Realty Group, Jones Lang LaSalle, and those 2 will be presenting today. They were issued the RFP on September 16, 2020. Next slide, please. So the format is that the 2 teams will make presentations to the committee. They have 30 minutes to make their presentation. There'll be 20 minutes for the committee to ask questions and seek answers, and then it'll be followed by 10 minutes for the committee to deliberate and discuss in session. Then we'll jump to the second team, and from there, after that, staff will make a presentation just of some of the information regarding the RFP process. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the IRG JLL team, and they'll sit up front. Unfortunately, we have 2 mics. Okay. But, so, I mean, if you sit back, you guys can swap in and out. Perfect. I'm going to turn on. Okay, who is go down the middle there.
So do we not have is there a PowerPoint for JL?
We didn't get one for JL.
We just got the Lewis Homes, who I thought was first. You are totally special.
When she brought me
that. Thank you.
May I also?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
You could also use the podium if you need to, if you want to introduce someone else. Okay, just go on.
Okay, you're on. Hi.
Good afternoon. You're flipping my slides for me? Okay, great. So I'll look at you and we'll move through this rather quickly, rather efficiently. But if you can go to the first slide, please. We wanted to begin by saying thank you to the distinguished committee for having us today and including us in what we consider to be a very exciting process. We just think that this is an exceptional opportunity, and our heart and soul are into this. We're very excited to present to you today and look forward to your questions. We'd also like to thank the Solano360 team, James Bezek, Nancy Huston, and Tom Sinclair, who have been very accommodating. Every time we had questions, they promptly answered those questions. We spent a good portion of a day touring the site, just invaluable time spent with the team. And I thought that the RFP and the RFQ process was very well put together, and it really made, I think, our jobs easy to give you what we think is a good presentation. So thank you to the team. We'd also like to thank Don McCoy at Six Flags, who might be on Mobley, but spent a good deal of time with Don and the team at Six Flags, and we learned an awful lot. And I think it was that learning from them that really opened our eyes to the opportunities at this property. And so we are grateful for the team at Six Flags for spending quality time with us and sharing their insights. And finally, we'd like to thank Mike Locomedes at the fair. Same thing with Mike. Mike gave us access and time. Every time we spent time with Mike, we learned something new, a new opportunity that we hadn't thought about, a new service that the fair is providing the community. And so we're very, very grateful for Mike. And a lot of what we learned, you'll see, is incorporated into our plan. And I think, it just gave us this perspective, if you will, that there's a lot of opportunity both for the fair, the property, and the community at large. So thank you for that. And then finally, I'd like to thank the community, the residents, and the neighbors, folks that are here today, folks that have dialed in. This is your community, and we are humbled by the opportunity to present today. So thank you very much. Somebody I think that I'm inspired by is Walt Disney. And so I wanted to kick off by saying, do what you do so well that they will want to see it again and again and bring their friends. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do. Not only for the visitor part of this, for the retail component that we're going to talk about, but I want to live there. I want to work there. Have you heard about Vallejo? You got to go and check this place out. It's amazing. And so completely inspired by a guy that went to Anaheim when Anaheim was nothing, and went to Orlando when Orlando was nothing, and had a vision and saw through that vision. And so we're just inspired by Walt, and that's something I think, those are the words that we want to live by as we execute this plan. Just a quick sort of method to our madness, if you will. If you haven't seen this, Simon Sinek does a TED Talk, and he talks about this thing called the golden circle of what, how, and why. And he speaks about the comparisons of companies that do pretty good, and then companies that do exceptional, or people that do exceptional. And again, if you haven't seen the slide, to me it was a life changer. I encourage you all to look at this. But what it is what you do is important, and how you do it is also important, but why you're doing it, the purpose for why you're doing it, is the most important thing, and it's the game changer. And if you look at Apple Computer or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all began and they all sort of lived out their vocations with the question of why. And so we thought that was an important driver for not only this project, but for all the projects that we work on, and we find it a great way to be successful. So in our case, what? Well, there are great developers out here. I think you've got two of the best developers in this room today. Well, what are we doing? We're going to develop suitable, functional, aesthetically attractive products that work well together to create a cohesive, thoughtful community for all. We're all going to do that. I think you are down to two great developers that are going to give you that. No question asked. How are we going to do it? Through the talent and skill of IRG and JLL's seasoned real estate veterans, with the collaboration of the county, the city, residents, neighbors, and best-in-class consultants. That's how we're going to do it. And we've done it again and again and again, and it's going to be no different here. We're going to create a great product with great people. So what's the differentiator? And the differentiator is why. And we struggled with this question, if you would. And we found this article that really kind of opened our eyes to what the why is. There was a study done about 10 years ago by Knight Ridder Gallup where they went to 26 cities and asked the residents, 400 residents in each one of those cities, what keeps people attached to where they live. And there was 10 components to the study, everything from civic involvement, social capital, safety, economy, leadership, basic services, education. But the same 3 attributes floated to the top in all 26 cases. Social offerings, places for people to meet each other and the feeling that people in the community care about each other. Number 2, openness, how welcoming the community is to different types of people, including families with young children, minorities, and talented college graduates. And the third component, in 26 cities, 400 survey respondents in each one of those cities, consistent time and time again, aesthetics, the physical beauty of the community, including the availability of parks and green spaces. So it was this that helped with our why. So we took a stab at it, and we feel really good about it. Why? Because we, the people of this great region, want a place to go. We believe in the strength of our history, our legacy, our social diversity, and we want a place that celebrates these unique qualities, a prideful destination that is safe, engaging, exciting, fun, and interesting, a place that invites others from afar to stay longer and enjoy a truly unique experience, a place with its own wonderful, authentic character and aesthetic identity. That's what we're going to live by. We're going to hang that on the wall. We're probably going to modify it to get the heartfelt input of the residents and you all on the committee and the Board of Supervisors and the council members. And we're going to define that, and we're going to hang it on the wall, and we're going to live by that. It's all about the why. So I just want you and would ask you to indulge me for a few moments, maybe relax a little bit. You know, we're in formal chambers here. If we had it our way, we'd all be outside walking on the site, and we'd be pointing and talking and debating and having fun with it, but we're not. So I have to ask you to take a deep breath and just imagine. Imagine a place to go or meet your family. I know it's really hard in this day of the pandemic, and maybe it's even more important, but imagine that place to go with your family and your friends. I know that our family, when we go out, we say, let's not do that dinner out on a Wednesday night, because on Friday night, we're going to go to the Grove down in LA where I live. Imagine a place to be entertained. You can't wait. There's always something going on at this place. There's a concert. There's a lecture. There's a special speaker that comes to this place. Imagine a place to do things, to shop, to wonder, to discover. Imagine a place with thoughtful design, and we think that this is very important. Thoughtful design, because aesthetics are in the top 3, and we have to be very, very cognizant of what it is that we feel is right for the aesthetics. And I just want to pause here for a minute and say that the way we undertake aesthetics is that we begin with a narrative and a story. And that story typically links back to the history and the legacy of a city and its people, and we build around that. And people adapt to the story, and the architecture speaks for itself. Just some of the ideas that we had. And we were really kind of excited as we sort of think about what this might be as this kind of confluence of the agricultural history of the region and the fact that it's on a bay and the history of the Navy and the shipping and everything that goes along with that. There was just great iconic pieces that we think we could use really, really well in our aesthetic. Imagine a place to celebrate. And, you know, this is key, and we just think there's terrific opportunities for a great place to celebrate. And imagine a place to learn. You know, we'd like to have a brewery, and we'd like to have a winery, and we'd like to have a great, you know, farm-to-table kitchen on the site and a great coffee shop. But one of the things that we're working on is a project in Ohio where we have 60 opportunities to do things and to learn. So it's not just that we're going to have a brewery, but we'd like to compel that brewery to teach brewmaster classes or winemaking classes. So it's great to go and get a beer. It's even better to learn how that beer was made. Vallejo Brewery, we just think is terrific, and what a great place to learn. No better place. Imagine a place of great cultural foods. Imagine the Filipino food and the great barbecue and perhaps the soul food, whatever it is. This is a place that you could go to. You can't go anywhere else in Northern California or the Bay Area that's going to have this variety that ties back to its people better than we are going to create here at this site. Imagine a place to live, to love, to grow, to learn, and excel. And imagine a place to work at a dream job. Imagine a place that is well connected to art, nature, and well-being. If you can imagine all of this, we got a place for you. IRG and JLL were very pleased to present Solano360 and our vision for the site. So as I explain the site, I've bifurcated it into the north site, which is everything north of the central water feature, and the south site. And we'll circle back around and we can explain more. So to begin with the north site, the main axis is the west to east Main Street at the center of the site, of the north site. And we envision this to be an extension coming from Six Flags to the east, to the fairgrounds and beyond. And in our discussions with Six Flags, we've realized that there's this heck of an opportunity that we have nowhere else. There's already this captured entertainment component that we want to leverage off of. We want to carry that mood over from Six Flags. Not only do we want the folks that are showing up at Six Flags and then go home at the end of the day, or maybe come late, park their car, go into Six Flags. We want those people before they go into Six Flags, and we want those people after a day at Six Flags. So our relationship with Six Flags is crucial, and it's important, and it opens up all kinds of opportunities. But places like Universal City Walk and Downtown Disney and the like, you don't have to go to Six Flags to get that energy and that excitement. Everything I said about celebrating and enjoying a day with friends, you can have that just by coming to our plan for Solano360. So we like this Main Street. Imagine a town square at the end that's backed by this terrific hotel that provides all kinds of services, which I'll go into. While we're here, I just want to talk about how we've planned a little bit the retail. So south of Main Street, which is, again, down by the water feature, we have opened up the space. So that retail is more of might be our brewery and our farm-to-table restaurant. And then off to the right, on the right side of that oval there, is this concept that we're familiar with, where it's a bunch of little boutique restaurateurs that are selling the best of. And the way it works is that we provide the kitchens and we provide the venues, and then we curate and find the best restaurateurs that come in and provide a mixture and a selection of foods. And if they last 18 months because they didn't do good enough, they're easily replaced with, again, the best of. And maybe that's the place that we have all these terrific foods. The others to the north side are your more entertainment type venues, Dave & Buster's. And by the way, we're going to show images and we're going to talk names. I am not specifically inferring that we're going to get those tenants. I'm just telling you by example. But that's where we have the big box, the Dave & Buster's, the Lucky Strike. We have a concept that is a terrific sports bar that's completely virtual that we think is an amazing opportunity that could go in the site as well. So you have your entertainment, and then you have your more boutique, offerings, if you will. Moving up north on plan, we have our mixed-use retail Main Street. We've actually minimized the amount of retail to the retail that we think is necessary. So we're providing a fresh food grocer, something like a Sprouts or a Trader Joe's or a Whole Foods, something like that. And then, we might have our necessary pharmacy. And then above that on the mixed-use Main Street would be our some residential component. One thing I neglected to point out is that we have opened up this plan. I'm going to go into this a little bit more in detail. But we've essentially, from the specific plan, shifted the fair down around clockwise to the right to come onto the handlery piece. That provides us an ability to get much-needed commercial space. We're going to propose studios, which I'll speak about in a moment. And we think that creates great-paying jobs that are going to create a wonderful balance for the site. The other thing it does for us is that it opens up all the other real estate because we're not compressing and consolidating the private use development into two significant sites. We've given ample space, we think, to the fair, space that works. After speaking with them, we have a lot more conversation to do, but we feel like our first initial pass at this and the vetting that we've done, we think that it works. So
Let me pause you right there,
Yeah.
because I'm pausing the timer. You have 20 minutes.
left or 20 minutes?
You have 6.5 minutes left.
Oh, wow.
Are you counting?
It's a 30, we reset the time to 30 minutes.
Oh, I thought it was 20.
We opted.
It says in here 20. Okay, all right. Good thing. Go ahead.
So I have
You're on a great,
15? 15, I need an hour.
there you go. Yes, you do. You were paused for this moment, but.
Where was I? Where was I?
Start over.
Yeah.
You're excited about this.
I'm excited about everything.
Yeah.
Sorry. So we've got a transit center that is going to take some thought, but we want to do great. We've traveled through Europe. We've seen these great transit stops. I don't understand why we don't do a better job of it here in this country, except for the Vallejo Transit Center, which I think is really cool, really terrific. And we want to expand off that. We want this thing to be very usable, very functional. We put studios at the top part of this because we know that they're needed. We've actually had some preliminary conversations with Smith & Ristic Partners on Mare Island. We are open, by the way, to working with any of the previous or current suitors on this project. Best in class is what we're after. And so in speaking with them, we know that those studios would work really, really great. We know that those are well-paying jobs. We also know that studios tend to raise the value of the real estate that surrounds it. And so we think it's a great opportunity. As we come further around clockwise, that might expand in future phases, or we may have a mix of creative office use, light industrial tech coming around to right clockwise. As we come further down south, that initially is going to be the northern portion of our fairgrounds. And the way we envision this is grounds. We envision groves and orchards. We think it's great coming down the highway. You see these orchards. Perhaps we have this windmill. And then you come down the fairgrounds. You see the hotel. You see the field house. During the times of fair, with all of the rides and everything, it's just going to be spectacular coming down the I-80 there. We just think it's going to be terrific. The centerpiece of our development is a hotel. It starts at about 250 rooms. Again, in discussions with Six Flags, there's an opportunity there to flag it, perhaps as a Six Flags. It more than likely would be a soft brand, like a Tapestry, something where we're tapping the benefits of having a big brand like a Marriott or a Hilton. But it could be Six Flags by Tapestry. Maybe not. But we think that it might be a good opportunity to do that. And we just think that with the rest of the site, what a great place for corporate retreats. We just think that the link between the hotel and the field house and the fair provides wonderful opportunities for catering of the hotel to service the events that might be at the fair. And so a lot of those services now can be handled professionally year-round by the staff that's at the hotel. So I think just huge opportunities for the hotel component. The other thing that we've learned from the fair is that there's a need for RV parking. There are opportunities to do a well-planned RV parking both for the fair and for year-round uses. So I don't know if I've missed anything on this. There's some details to it. We'll go to the next slide. And I'm just going to fly through this, but imagine that Main Street. Can you imagine the holidays where we decorate for Christmas and 4th of July and Halloween, where we leverage off of what Six Flags is doing on their Fright Night? We just think it's great. I mean, it is the quintessential Main Street that everybody wants to hang out at, and that's what we want to create. Again, this is just sort of depicts some of our interesting architecture where we pick up off those shipping containers and sort of the farm style. We open up the grounds. We have some turf coming down to the water feature to kind of spread it out and get it open. Just a little bit more. We'd love it if we had some iconic signage and graphics that you could see coming down the highway, because we want people to drive by this and, again, wow, what's going on there? Let's go check it out. Again, just some of the architecture of what that might look like. We love the patina of buildings. And this might be our mixed-use component, where we have you have the supermarket and the grocery store and some of the necessary retail up on the mixed-use component with residents above. I don't like our picture we've selected to the right. It's an ugly picture. But what it says is that this kind of live-work component in the mixed use, where the lower level could be the boutique card shop. In Marina del Rey, near where we live, there's a guy that does these knots for boats. You go there and he does this, and so he lives above and he's got this shop below. You could have a selection of artists or something, if you will, without having the burden and the worry about what you're going to do with smaller retail that's awkward and is it going to be here today and gone tomorrow. So something I think we'd want to consider. Next, please. The studios don't have to look like ugly big boxes. We think that there's great opportunities to use the studios to our advantage. In fact, using the studio backlot as additional entertainment. The upper right picture is an example of how the facades in those studios could actually work to use to film and create a little theme. So we think it's great. The other thing about the studios that I'd point out is that there's a huge need for smaller studios, not just the big producers, but every blogger out there that's creating content needs that kind of venue to create that kind of content. And we just think that's a huge untapped opportunity. And there certainly isn't anything like it in Northern California. There's a little bit of that in Southern California. So we think a huge opportunity. And if we are going to do commercial, light industrial, if we're going to do office, we want to be creative about it. And what's intended here is to show you that, you know, with some well-spent money and some good thought, we can make these buildings look attractive. Because, again, we want a balance of great-paying jobs, great residential, great retail, great entertainment. And we think it's important that we build into those components to make the property as a whole work. Next, please. And just inspired for the hotel, something that's iconic. It's probably going to be something like a three-star level hotel. And we thought one of the opportunities, the old Marine barracks on Mare Island, what if we took that style and we kind of leveraged off it? We thought it could be fun. Or something that was a little bit more like the Cannery Wharf type style up to the upper left. But something, again, because this is the centerpiece of our property, and we really want it to be recognizable as you look east down Main Street with the fair in the background and, you know, and the flags going down Main Street and the center island. We just think it's going to be fun, but that this anchors our property beyond the town square at the end. And again, in terms of its function and its use and how it services the entire property, we think it's crucial. Again, our relationship with Six Flags is going to be important to make the most of this property. And one of the things that we think is important is we can't have any cluster of traffic as we're now pushing people back and forth across the street. And so we had this idea that we were going to create a plaza on the Six Flags side and a plaza on our side with this really cool bridge. And by the way, you didn't have the benefits of our design vignettes where we came up with all sorts of crazy ideas and a lot of fun ideas, and none of which I'd rule out, including rides that might go over the highway. We even spoke to people about a gondola and the prospect of building a gondola and what that costs and how many people it can move. And then we thought, could you expand this gondola to elsewhere in Vallejo? Maybe not, but I'm just telling you that we thought about these ideas and that they are worthy of further consideration. But maybe that bridge coming from Six Flags over to our side of the property isn't just a typical pedestrian bridge, but maybe it itself is iconic. Maybe we mimic one of the bridges coming into Vallejo. You know, I think we want to have fun with that. We want people to take pictures. We want this to be memorable. And at the same time, we're helping our traffic pattern coming all the way down, Fairgrounds Drive. And again, just some images, some inspiration for the transit stop. Moving to the south side, which is going to be much quicker. Most importantly for Six Flags, we've accommodated them from day one until day 14 years from now, that they are going to have adequate parking. And the day that it becomes too valuable to sit on surface lots is probably the day that we can begin to stack and go to parking structures. But we have their surface parking to the south of the site, and then we have the fairgrounds parking also to the south of the site. And that road on the right side of the screen going up is this colonnade that serves the fair purposes. And those two buildings off to the right are the field house and the annex building. And then you have fields and you have this road that goes from the south side of the site to the north side over the bridge to the north side of the site. That works perfectly for the fair with their rides, their venues. It's plenty of space. It's highly efficient. It's compact. We've gotten all the parking where we need it. We just think that it works so well that we were very excited about it. And it gives us the opportunity to put other things on the site that are going to benefit the fair and are going to benefit Vallejo and the county of Solano at large. We've opened up our multifamily. By the way, our architecture on the multifamily is going to be unique and different and varied. We are loath to have anything that looks too cookie cutter, too much alike. We've opened it up with urban gardens, with paths, with bike trails, with bridges. So it's a very interactive experience. You can walk out of your townhouse, and even if it isn't a townhouse, the way we might design it might look like a townhouse, meander around the DG trails and the bike paths, go to the transit stop and never have to take your car, go up to your job that's at the north side of the site. So we think that this multifamily component, which is economically crucial to the balance of the site, is something we want to be very mindful of and very thoughtful of, so that it too creates the character for the site. And just some ideas and some flavor. Next. I'm going to point out this building to the lower left. That's a building in Detroit, and that's kind of an open air concept, if you will, which we think is a great idea for one of the structures that the fair could use. And then there's also the field house. So I think we've called for, I think we said a 70,000 square foot field house, and then I think we said a 10 or 15,000 square foot expo building or annex building. And our understanding so far is that that is what's needed. That takes care of the contest, the livestock, the rides. It's very energized and exciting. It allows us and provides us the opportunities to have events year-round. It also provides the fair a meaningful presence year-round, that they can do things now year-round to promote the fair that's coming. All year round, we can promote it. We just think it's a great opportunity. And one of the ideas we had is that maybe you have, the funnel cake guy, and he comes just to kind of get you excited that another 4 months from now you've got the fair coming to town. So that street up to the right side works really well. We're looking at a performing arts center, probably something like an amphitheater, maybe 2,000 to 5,000 seats. Thanks. Almost done. Great. Next. Apartment ideas. Next. Next. Arts. Trails, next. Art program, which we think is really important to placemaking, next. That's just a summary of the site, next. And that's kind of a vision. Our renderer did a pretty good job. We're not too sure about the scale, but that gives you an idea of the excitement and how the site would be laid out over the site. Next. 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 So our phasing, just touch on this very quickly. Our phase one would be utilities, infrastructure, studios. We'd leave the existing fairgrounds up to the top side there initially, and we'd replace that in phase two. We'd have some multifamily, and we'd begin to put our retail in. If we didn't build the retail, we'd at least put the infrastructure and the pads in and the central water feature. In short, that's phase 1A and 1B. Next, please. Phase two comes back in and puts some mixed use in, adds our hotel, and that's when we relocate the fairgrounds down around to the southeast side and begin to build our fairgrounds, and we build a little bit more multifamily according to market demands. Next. And then finally in phase three, we add back in additional multifamily as market demands dictate. Next, please. And phase four goes back and fills in on any of those areas that maximize the value and the benefits of the project as a whole. And that might include, for example, we have a site, the fair site up on the northern portion. We may come back in with a golf experience, a water park, some of the things that we've talked about, but we don't want to do initially, but they may be beneficial down the road. Next. And just a comparison to the specific plan. I just want to run through this checklist really quick, because what's important about the specific plan is that we live up to the values of the specific plan, and that's we want to make sure we've done that. Generate revenues for Solano County and the city of Vallejo, create jobs, and ensure long-term economic sustainability. We think we have. Establish a unique place with an unmistakable identity that serves as a destination for visitors as well as pedestrian-friendly community gathering place. We know we've done that. Explore a mix of complementary land uses, including retail, commercial, hospitality, recreational, residential, and so on. We know we've done that. And integrate the fair of the future. Well, we've just had a few conversations, meaningful conversations with the fair. We know that they handle evacuations, for example, during the fires. We think that we're going to create, we know we have, we've been thoughtful about that, we're going to continue to do that. Explore increased physical connectivity and synergies, Six Flags, Discovery Kingdom, well, we know we've done that. Provide pedestrian, bicycle, vehicular, very important to us, and incorporate sustainable green principles, which is something that we'll do in all of our developments, never more so here. Next, please. And this just sort of recaps everything that I've just discussed, so no sense in going back to this thing, but we think that we've hit on everything that we know is going to answer that question of why. Next. And so coming together is beginning, staying together is a progress, and working together is success. What do we have, a minute left? No, we have 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Okay, so we're going to leave it to questions because one of the things we didn't get to is I wanted to introduce the team members. We have Stuart Lichter. He's the founding principal of IRG, which is an amazing company. And Stu is going to, maybe during the question and answer session, tell us a little bit about IRG. But if you ever get the chance, you want to learn more about IRG. They're really fun and amazing company. Justin Lichter, also with IRG. He can expand on some of those stories. And then Greg Whitney with JLL, international real estate company that has just been incredibly helpful and knows everything there is to know about a cross-spectrum of real estate around the world. So one more slide and then I'm done. It might be challenging, but challenging roads often lead to beautiful destinations. The best is yet to come.
I got an email while you were speaking. Could you introduce yourself? Because you didn't introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Mike.
A little bit more.
Just Mike?
My name is
Not
Mike.
to be confused
My name
with
is Mike Lindenlob.
Mike what?
Mike Lindenlob.
Wow, you're going to have to spell that, Mike.
Your firm, Mike.
Yeah, my company is CRA and PlaceMake. CRA really handles sort of the interior planning. We work with people like Disney and Marriott and Hyatt and Hilton. And then PlaceMake is broader, where we handle real estate opportunities, and we envision real estate opportunities with the same group of clients. Add to that Goldman Sachs and some of the larger owners of real estate.
Great.
So thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, so with that, we turn it over to the committee. You have 20 minutes of questions and answers, and then we'll wrap up with a 10-minute discussion on your end.
Okay. Supervisor Strang, you want to go first?
Yeah, thank you.
Are you with us?
The,
Open up his mic.
first I want to thank you. I really appreciate your presentation. Very heavy on the vision of the project, and that has really been kind of the many things that you're showing was the original concept that we've been working on for many years. Can someone just touch on your financial strength? When I look at phase one, it's very aggressive on infrastructure needed that isn't going to generate a lot of revenue in the front end. So can you just talk about that first?
So IRG, which I'm happy to go into more details about IRG, but we're one of the largest privately owned real estate companies in the country. We're currently working with Goldman Sachs, and we expect within the next few weeks to get an investment-grade credit rating, at which times we'd be able to issue bonds in the market. We currently have over 100 million square feet of real estate in something like 30 states, and have a balance sheet with over $1 billion net worth. So you're dealing with a major player. And I pinch myself when I think about that I started this at age 24, and it's come to this. So it's wonderful, but we have the capacity to do this.
I feel like I started this when I was 24.
Well, Jim, you did.
Yeah, thanks. And so I take it from what you're saying is that you are prepared to do this infrastructure in the front end to really start building the identity of this project. For me, the water feature is really the main attractor, and if that's done correctly, I think it's going to have a lot of potential, that iconic project that we want. And some of the proposals we looked at before, because of those costs, that was always phased in a little bit later. And so I just wanted to make sure that, as you talk about in your phase one, A and B, that, that investment in the front end to start setting what the real framework of this project is. Another question is on the, we're negotiating with the Fair Association now, and it's very possible that may only go down to a 5-day event, annually. So talk a little bit how you would use that space, if the fair is only a 5-day fair, and that area is really up for development, public use, or how would you fit that in?
Yeah.
I think that the best way to relate that is to a project that we're doing right now that bears a lot of similarities to this project, in that we're developing something called Hall of Fame Village in Canton, Ohio, in partnership with the NFL, the NFL's Player Association, and the Football Hall of Fame. And similarly there are a lot of things that they need for a week, right? And so we just finished building a $150 million stadium, right? That was built to NFL specs because they use it for one game a year. But we've managed to get Division III bowl games in football and soccer, the state high school championships, concerts, and managed to create a program that will probably use that stadium 120 to 150 nights a year, right? Same thing with training facilities the NFL required in that project. So the idea here would be to create facilities that are bookable to a large variety of users. Those facilities generally, to be honest, don't make a profitable return on by themselves. They're sort of loss leaders, which is why from an economic point of view, you really have to choose here whether you want vision or you want the best economics. Because from an economic point of view, this is a great housing site. You could do housing from now till tomorrow, make a ton of money. But we as a company approach things differently, and we say, what is a really good thing to do to this site? And particularly in an opportunity like this, where there might be some flexibility, we have the opportunity, if the community chooses to work with us, to build some facilities that we wouldn't build from a profit point of view.
Okay.
And that's really what we're doing here. We're saying that we have an anchor, right, in Six Flags. We have a lot of people coming here. So let's create something that capitalizes on what's here and do things like water park, Top Golf, restaurants, right? Because you already have that core to build on. That's how the facility in Canton happened. I'm in with the mayor because we have a lot of other business. And he said, can I ask you a question? You're a smart guy. If there's something I should be doing for the city that I'm not doing, what would it be? And I basically said, you have the best brand in the country. You have the Football Hall of Fame here. And it sits there, and you've done nothing around it. As a real estate guy, if I have the anchor, I build around the anchor. Yeah. You have a Six Flags here. So we created a vision there of doing football-themed water parks, sports bars. Right?
I just want to make sure that your plan is going to be flexible enough to be able to utilize that land for other uses that's really going to enhance the rest of the development.
Right.
So and the other question.
So I gave you way too long an answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's your time that you're wasting. The other question, the ability to work together, I think, is a very important piece to me. One criticism I have of your plan is that it seems like the water feature just splits this project right in half, and it doesn't look like you carried that land use plan into the south side. And I really think it's important that functionally, that's going to have to be changed a little bit, because I think that there's stress going from all of this activity. I mean, all of a sudden you're going into a housing project, and so that transition. I just want to make sure that you're flexible. You understand. For me, it's going to be how this whole project functions. It has to function together. I'm not looking for these individual pieces just independently working. And so this is kind of a yes or no question. I mean, on this plan, that you're going to be flexible enough to work with us on how these designs, how this thing functions. I was puzzled about the sound stages. I certainly wouldn't have put that in, but that was your choice. How do you see that? Explain a little bit more how you see that as the highest and best use of the project, of that land. To me, that puzzles me.
I don't know whether there will or will not be sound stages here. We've been approached by a company. We've done that on some of our other sites, right? Yeah. And it's been a good business, whether it's the highest and best use and whether it ends up being in the plan.
So I'm saying from your point of view, not from mine, from your point of view, why is that a good project to have there?
Right. Well, from our perspective, it is another attraction that attracts people to the site, right? And it's not an integral part of our plan, and it's something that may or may not end up being in it after we work with the community. Because I don't think, to be honest, I mean, we'd make more money adding more residential or adding something else.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just trying to understand that better. I just have a real appreciation for the enthusiasm and the vision, because you have many of the components in this project that we have been talking about for a long time. The last question is, we have always envisioned this iconic project to where people say, hey, let's go there, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do. I mean, is that kind of what is how you're envisioning this? It sounds like as you go through your, sense of place, the enthusiasm, the vision, the aesthetics, all these things that are very pleasing. And so is that kind of the overall theme that you have here, iconic place, get people there, then they'll spend their money?
That's exactly what we have in mind.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, that's most of my questions. I'll pass it on to whoever else.
Well, I'll let Vice Mayor, Councilwoman, what do you know? Councilwoman Pippin do, yes.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Love the depth of the vision. It's very exciting. I was wondering about on the hotel and the outdoor water park. I was under the impression that Six Flags was more looking at an indoor water park resort.
So we don't, again, the water park comes in maybe phase 4, maybe sooner. We're not totally convinced that a water park is the right product, to be honest with you, for a number of factors. They're not cheap to do well. So we're not sure, but it could be. But whatever we put there has to be additive to what we already have. It has to be an additional venue. So whether that's a golfing venue, whether it's the water park or some virtual experience, which I think we're more in favor of, is to be seen. So we're not convinced. We're open-minded. If we can be convinced that it works and that it's additive and doesn't take away, we'll do it. And I think that we were looking at some combination of indoor and outdoor facility.
Okay. Yeah, I just
we're being mindful because of the weather.
Right. That's exactly why I'm thinking outdoor water park might not be so great. And then just side note, Don McCoy actually has been promoted down to Magic Mountain. Janine Durrett is the new park president as of this week, so she's coming from Montreal. I personally was happy to see the film studios there. I personally have seen how that drives people to our community to see where things have been filmed, whether it was 13 Reasons Why or Transformers. It drew a lot of people and it brought a lot of pride to our community. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to be reaching out to the community to find out if that is a piece that they would be interested. And then I'm just kind of curious what your process of analysis is going to be in regards to feasibility, highest and best use. You talk about a golf course. We have golf courses. We have troubles with our golf courses. Just curious, market demand and, absorption rates. Housing obviously has been a crisis before COVID was a crisis. So that clearly there's going to be demand, but obviously that's not something we want to see this whole site sucked up into. So just if you could share your thoughts on that.
So when we talk about a golf course, we're talking about something like Top Golf. And in our facility in Ohio I referred to, we just signed a deal with them last week for a massive indoor facility that's virtual. Right? So we're going to do a virtual Top Golf. So we would probably do something like that as part of this complex. And the whole idea is to leverage off of Six Flags and create an attractive place. It will not be a golf course as such.
Good. Thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah, just to expand off that a little bit, you talked about feasibility. We're going to do what's right, but we're going to stick with our core tenets and our core vision for the property, and we're going to create this place that is a place to go, no matter what.
Okay.
So if the apartment, if the studio product morphs into something else, it's going to achieve the same objective. So that's how we're going to approach it.
All right, then I'm going to go to Vice Mayor Hermy Sunga, who's on the line. Hermy, here's an opportunity for you to ask questions.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Hannigan. Thank you for letting me speak. And my question is, I'm very, very concerned about anchor tenants in a commercial area. And I know it's the anchor tenant that's the key for a successful commercial development. And it sounds like you indicated that you are going to use the existing tenant there as an anchor tenant. Is that what I heard?
No, what I was referring to is that in effect, you already have the equivalent of an anchor tenant because Six Flags attracts a couple of million people a year to the site, right? So we would leverage off the fact that those people are coming. That gives us an advantage in marketing to other tenants, anchor tenants and restaurants and everybody else because there's an existing base and attraction at this site.
Okay. So you'll be looking for anchor tenants that will supplement what we have right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I just want to express my personal intention that whatever anchor tenant we pick, it should be somebody that will not compete with the existing big businesses in the city of Vallejo. And I know that may be hard sometimes, but if that happens, I will be happy. On your town square project, how many residential are we talking about, and what type are they? Are they market price, development, single residences, or what?
Yeah, we have up in the mixed use zone, I think we have we've looked at about 300 apartment units over retail, and in the south portion of the site, I think we have about 700 preliminary walk-up apartment product. No for sale product on the site so far, but again, we're open-minded to it.
And phasing in as the site, gets developed and market.
Okay, and I'm excited as far as the golf idea that you mentioned about that golf. I think that's a great idea. I was there a few days ago, and the place was packed with, despite the pandemic we're in, it's packed. And a lot of people are there to not only to play mini golf, but also to wine and dine. I think that would be a good place to have in Vallejo, knowing the many golfers we have right here. And as far as the studio is concerned, I don't know if you talked to them or not yet, but somebody told me they are planning to move to American Canyon in the very near future. So I don't know. I would love to have them at this spot. I know. In answer to Turby Sparing's question, I think studio and sound stages bring a lot of other businesses like food catering and all those in the city, and I have seen that happen with the small studios on Mare Island. There are other businesses that benefit from it around the area. So, but I just want to make sure that we check on them if we really think that they should be part of this project. We have to be careful that they really go there instead of going to American Canyon. One thing I don't want to see is plan for them to be there and they're not going after all. So again, thank you for the presentation. I think it's a viable project. But like I asked the staff before, I was hoping that these two presenters today will work together and improve the fairgrounds. On your proposal, is that including improving whatever is left for the fair?
I'm not sure I heard the question right. What was the question?
As they're part of your project, that will include some type of improvement to the remaining land for the fair.
Yeah. Yes, as part of our development, we would actually be replacing some of the older fair facilities with new facilities that they would have access to for the fair.
Yeah. Like I said, I told staff that I just wish that you guys can work together and form a solid plan, because you both have good plans. And if they can be consolidated, that would be great for Solano360. So I hope that will happen. And I hope that we keep preaching to the other builders, especially Sonny Blick, who had planned for the Waterworld project and hotel project. So, okay, that's all I got. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Hermie. So I'll go ahead and ask my questions. I don't know how much time we have left, but I need to ask questions. In the specific plan, we identify the channel that goes around the southern part, and you don't talk about it at all, but I imagine you've got that figured out, that is need to be included. Okay, that's a drainage issue.
It's in our number.
There's good reasons. Okay. I want to just let you know, I appreciate the flexibility of your plan. I mean, you have a lot of space in a lot of different areas that different decisions can be made, and the comment that it has to be additive and not take away, I think is really important. We want a project, obviously, that is consistent, and it doesn't look like we grabbed something from here and threw it in and something from there and threw it in, and it, has that feel. So, but I do appreciate the flexibility that you've really built into it. I see all this surface parking, and I'm, well, that could be something else, but I know you know that. The other question I had was in terms of the housing, because you are going to be, what you're proposing is a 50-year lease with 2 25-year extensions. In terms of I guess it would be the housing, the multifamily residential, which is separate from the housing that's over retail. Is your intent to entitle and build that housing as the market bears?
Yes. So the answer to your question is yes, but we also operate with a lot of partners. We think you have another wonderful company here, so we're not sitting here saying that we would do every little piece of this ourselves, right? But yes, we would do that in phases, and and some of it probably ourselves, and some of it either in joint venture or saying to a residential developer, here, you go take that.
My concern is, again, back to that consistency in terms of aesthetics. And, a lot of times entitlement can be one thing, building can be another, and you get these mixed pieces of development that doesn't match.
We would have a master developer control over the whole thing to make sure that everything's consistent and architecturally appropriate on everything, or any piece of this that we don't do ourselves as a company.
Okay, great. That's really important to me. The parking structure. So, we talk about parking structures. Obviously, this is going to be a discussion that will go on. There's a new thing, in that is creating parking structures that can be reused as housing potentially someday, right? We live in this Uber, Lyft, gig economy, and who knows what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years. That would be something that I would like to have you explore, is, how do you build it so at some point it can be transformed into maybe multifamily housing that would occur in that structure. I know that happens. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure you have with all of your experience.
I think that Greg Whitney, Greg, I'm going to speak for you, but he worked on the NFL site in L.A., and, they're building these parking structures, and Greg told me that these are being planned for future use. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very, very shrewd, for sure.
That's real forward thinking in terms of that. And a lot of the other questions have already been asked, and comments have been made. I do like the idea of the fair being moved to this other part of the project. The Hanley project property, because of the reasons of the Hanley, but also it gives, really a total fresh start for the fair and the buildings there. And again, back to that flexibility when you were talking about the restaurant space. You're literally going to create the space, and and then put in your top chefs, if you will. And if it doesn't work out, then somebody else can come in. That is and maybe this is COVID times, but I've spent a little bit of time in Napa recently, and they have that river walk, and they've lost quite a few of their celebrity chef restaurants. Tyler Florence's is gone, and what have you. But I think it's probably a sign of just the current times that we're living in. Not many people are going out and about. No, I'm really pleased with your project and what you're putting forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm very intrigued with this concept to where you'll build these units and it's flexible, that tenants can be moving in and out. To me, that really builds in a sustainability, and I hope that concept is sort of developed throughout this whole project, because that's a very intriguing approach.
Yeah, it's, the new dynamic in retail is flexibility.
Yeah,
and excitement.
Yeah.
You know, and this concept is just a really terrific concept, and it's got legs to do other things with outside of food and beverage. So
yeah, I was glad to see you include that, or at least present that, because some of these sort of strip mall things that have that flexibility are the ones that are surviving. The ones that don't are not.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and that's, you know, starting up a restaurant's very expensive, but if you already have the back end of the house already created,
Yeah.
you know, you can be flexible with the front end of the house. So that's
just as a
not as expensive.
in this particular project, a lot of these people, they start there and they become so successful that they end up going and doing restaurants, restaurant brands out of this incubator. It becomes this well-known incubator. So it's a terrific idea. Works great.
Great. Any additional questions that have come up? Vice Mayor Sunga, do you have any additional questions before we move on?
No, ma'am, I'm okay. We can move on.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right.
Yeah, so you have 10 minutes to use however you'd like to discuss the proposal, or however you want to do some dialogue. They can go sit back in the thing. I'll clean the area up and get set up for the next group.
Okay. I want to thank you.
Thank you
I want to
so
thank you
much.
for submitting your proposal. Thank you for your interest in our county. I'm actually a sixth-generation member of Solano County. I was raised in Fairfield, but my family goes way, way back in Vallejo because of Mare Island, and I've been looking at this piece of property my entire life. I've had wonderful experiences there and times I'll never forget, and that's what I'm looking forward to for, you know, my children and our children and many generations to come. So
Well,
thank you so much.
thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right. I'm a little unclear on this discussion. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
No, it was just kind of a break too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so if we had any questions among ourselves, we could certainly,
Yeah.
you know, just,
Yeah.
yeah, they can get ready.
I think we're, Okay, Hermine, just for your information, we have Lewis Plan Communities getting ready to present the concept.
Should I start? Or, whenever you're ready. Oh, okay. Good afternoon, Richard Lewis, Lewis Communities. Wanted to introduce Jeb Elmore, who's worked on the project very diligently. Also, Gary Archer, falling asleep in the back aisle.
Oh, hey. Be nice.
And Sue Vaccaro, who works with us in Solano County. I wanted to first thank the staff, the board, and the council in Vallejo for a great process, very professional, and everybody's been very responsive and very efficient. It makes it a lot easier for us. Secondly, I'd like to compliment the IRG company and their presentation was very excellent presentation. And though we're competitors, I have great respect for IRG, for Stuart Lichter. So you have two horses in the race, and whichever you select, you've got good choices. You've got winners. My part will be simple, just to tell you a little about the company quickly and our experience in Solano County. We've been here since 1970, not 6 generations, but since 1972, when we did our first development in Vallejo.
I think you want to move now.
Since then, we built approximately 2,000 houses, apartments, duplexes in Vacaville. We're building in Dixon. In Fairfield, we have the largest planned community ever done, 3,500 units. Additionally, in the city of Vallejo, we're working on the Blue Rock golf course to try and reposition it, make it more successful. And happy to announce that we're relocating Costco across the freeway from the fair, from their present location down on the 80, along with some other tenants. And we call the project Northgate. And we've been working on this for about 5 years. One good thing that happens when you're in the community, I think you get to understand the market, be it in Vallejo, Fairfield, Vacaville, Dixon, and I hate to mention it, we're also in Hercules on our third project, though it's in a different county, but it's close. So I think with our knowledge, we bring something to the Solano360, and it's a local knowledge that results only from being here every day. And I think it makes us know the process and the procedures and the people that, be it in the county or the city, makes it easier to deal with them, and we understand the needs and we understand the wants. We're a privately owned company like our IRG, and fortunately we have a net worth similar to what Stuart mentioned, and now I feel bad because I paid for his lunch the other day. So he owes me double. Our company is a multidisciplined company. We do housing, we do retail, we do apartments, we do for sale, we do a little of everything. And I think the housing is an important component because I think it's the engine that's going to make the rest of the thing work. And we've done about 100,000 houses and apartments. We do about 3,000 a year now. So we're right in the hunt, we're right in the middle, and we understand it, and we understand what's needed, and we understand what works financially. We tried to make our proposal something that we think can work fiscally. We don't, I think if anything, we tried to under-promise, and hopefully we can over-deliver. I grew up in Claremont next to the Pomona County Fair, which they say is the biggest one in the world. I've been going there for 65 years, and our company's been working with, it's called the Fairplex, 21 years, and I clearly understand the dynamics of county fairs and their importance, their benefit, the jobs they create, the people they attract. And that knowledge, I think, is going to be very helpful to our company on the Solano360 should we be chosen. And we're working with them right now as we speak, you know, with the LA or Pomona Fairplex as it's known. I should mention in Vallejo on the Blue Rock golf course, which is a complicated endeavor, but we're working with Greg Norman, who's very successful, and we hope to bring him with us to Solano360, and he has a top golf type concept. Of course, he says his is better. He has a water feature thing also, which we hope to incorporate. So we think it's a real asset being associated with him. One thing we do, our company is totally self-financed, and I think we provided evidence of that in the confidential part of the RFP. So we're the ones that put up the money. We don't rely on Wall Street. And it's our money, so we want to make sure it works and that it works well when it's your own money. We hire locally. We have a tremendous community outreach program. We've had a number of meetings on Blue Rock, just as an example. And it's our wish, should we be selected, to set the standard of community outreach, to work with the city of Vallejo as well as the county to create jobs, to educate the citizenry and make the city better, make the county better. With that, I'm going to let Jeb, who's more been in the nuts and bolts, maybe talk about the development itself. Jeb.
Thank you very much, Richard. And obviously, it's a pleasure to work for Mr. Lewis and the Lewis family, as I have for 9 years.
You don't have to get right on top of that mic.
Oh, sorry, Jim. I don't even need the mic if you know me by now.
No, you just don't have to get right on top of it.
So, obviously, the quotes we've inserted in our presentation, of course, are Jeb Elmore quotes, so they're not from a famous person. But that quote to right off the slide here, that we plan what we can build to ensure we build what we plan, I think is very evident. We wanted to today put forth, and through the RFQ and RFP process, put forth a plan that we know we can execute on in today's marketplace. Obviously, as was asked to the other team, and as we've certainly reinforced in our proposal, we have the utmost opportunities to collaborate, to discuss, to review all sorts of options for the property. So we wanted to make sure we put forth a plan that shows you that we've thought about how it is a financially feasible plan to process and move forward. However, I want to fully express that we are more than open to collaboration, listening to a variety of uses. We were restricted, of course, during this process to consult directly with this board, and we, of course, feel that that is a great need to do that collaboration to understand what's in the best interest of the county and the city on this property. Obviously, just to rehash, next slide, please, on the RFQ response, we were participants to some degree in the Solano360 RFP process in 2014-15. Spent an awful lot of time, met Nancy and Tom at that time as well. We're ready to reevaluate the plan, but obviously with the freshness of the Solano360 plan, we felt at the time that housing was an important aspect that would be needed in this planning area and didn't want to try to diffuse or upset the process. So therefore, we did not submit a proposal at that time, but here we are back again. Obviously, we have been staring at this property, as Richard alluded to, for about 6 years and have been thinking about it. Obviously, we've held a few direct conversations with a few of you as well over the last 3 years with our interest in this property and efforts to try to become the master developer for such. And that was really evident in our RFQ. We submitted a conceptual plan to the RFP level because we're ready to go. We've thought a lot about this plan. We didn't really need the RFP process to execute anything forward. We wanted to leave things conceptual enough to offer that collaboration and community outreach process to understand what the community is really looking for here. But again, we've certainly put a lot of great thought into this, just have done it a little bit, I guess, earlier in the process. Obviously, we have continued to maintain our conceptual plan from our RFQ, and now what we see today, despite there are some changes and some great thoughts by the team certainly, is that we really do see two like-kind concepts for this, and that really harkens us back to going back maybe to the RFQ, which is, the purpose is to select the preferred and most capable development partner, and certainly we're here today to represent ourselves as being exactly that. Next slide, please. The RFP response. The very top priority for us was to prioritize sustainable revenue generation for the county and insuring the city. That's what this plan to us is most important to achieve. That's the reason why you're redeveloping it, in our opinion, the fairgrounds, because it's not sustainable. You've invested a lot of dollars, and I think that the county is ready to receive a return on that. So again, our plan and our approach is to make sure that the county and the city are both beneficiaries on the short and long-term perspectives from an economic conclusion on this property. Obviously, our approach on the entertainment sector was to make sure it was all-inclusive. We're very open to privatized, high-fee type features on this property, but that excludes a wide range of this community that will be unable to enjoy this land. And we wanted to make sure it was open and free for all to enjoy, live, work, play, all across the board. The water feature has always been an iconic landmark feature in this. We absolutely want that to persist. And as Richard alluded to, we believe there's opportunity to expand that water feature to offer recreation, on-water recreation. A potential wakeboarding park is the concept that the Norman team has. Of course, we would always stay persisting as the master developer of the site and would control all functions and processes going forward. Obviously, both plans have now provided and produced and showing a variety of housing. Our housing we have proposed for sale. There's a lot of flexibility for us on for sale versus for rent. We believe both are achievable and would work very well to offer to, again, an all-inclusive wide range of potential homeowners, residents on this property. But again, we are continuing to be open and flexible with our approach on that. There it is. We certainly are offering that flexibility. We know the county wants to retain land. We're a long-term landowner too. There's a great mutuality of interest in regards to our appreciation for the county's desire to hang on to their assets going forward, as the Lewis Company has always done as well. And again, our proposal certainly continues to leave room for plenty of collaboration. Next slide, please. Again, I think as it was expressed, our proposal is a little bit different from our competitors here in the fact that, we agree with Mr. Spearing. The vision of this plan has been very well codified by the county through the process of the specific plan. And while we've introduced substantial housing, we believe that this certainly fits within the goals and vision of the Solano360 specific plan to bring that entertainment value, vibrancy, complement Six Flags, do it the right way, but make sure it gets done. That's, to me, the most important element, that it does get done. Obviously, just to kind of spin around, next slide, please. To spin around here a little bit, I didn't create a fair slide. Obviously, we've taken the approach to leave the fair in its current place. Obviously, we're pursuing and looking at a lot of county fairgrounds right now. And in this case, while we appreciate Mrs. Hannigan's comment, or not Mrs. Hannigan anymore, but comment, we certainly believe that the fair probably could stay properly located in that position. Obviously, we see opportunities to enhance the infrastructure, to serve it, to integrate it with our recreation facility that we believe is a good opportunity to the south to offer some multi-use space and opportunities for those two to complement each other, as well as share parking potential considerations. But starting in that first phase, I think, again, I won't revisit each one of these land use areas because I think, quite frankly, Mike did a great job describing ultimately what we also see as achieving. And you can see in our imagery, our example of Victoria Gardens is we see very much a combination of vibrant, very urban, three-story massing for mixed-use commercial and residential in that initial portion in red is shown here. And there's about 25 or so acres of that with about 250 units stacked aside and above retail. Next slide, please. Obviously, also in that slide, I forgot to represent, should not ever forget to represent the purple structure there is also a hotel, which is also really similarly sited to the prior plan, right on the water, offering great views over the water, looking up in the Solano Hills as the views expand towards the east. The next phase, or we call the boulevard, of course, this is that main street running through, again, 3-story massing attached housing. We'd love to explore detached housing, but we can do that in a very urban setting to 20 units to the acre. We'd like to explore all sorts of housing concepts with you, as we are absolutely housing experts. We have many varieties and options. And also construct multifamily, quite frankly, often. So obviously, we know the housing had some objections early on, but with both proposers now indicating that that's an important element of this plan, and brings bodies to the area, an immediate shopping base, and then also complements our recreation opportunities as well. Next slide, please. The lakefront, we've heard it today, we've heard it for 6 years, the importance of this lake feature, of an iconic water feature. The Vallejo is very much a Bay Area city. We see it as part of the Bay, and what a great opportunity to drive down the hill coming west on 80, see a water feature on Solano360 that leads right to Lake Chabot, that leads right to the Napa River, that leads right to the Bay. It really puts Vallejo on the map as a true Bay Area city. We know the city has worked very hard to advertise under a Bay Area type approach, and we want to bring the Bay Area up certainly to Vallejo and to this property, and that iconic water feature will do exactly that. Obviously, we'll get into moments later about how that water feature also can serve to benefit from an engineering standpoint. Next slide, please. And of course, not to be discarded, of course, is we have placed a sizable parking lot with a red building. Now, of course, we know that area is right across the street from current Six Flags or their parking, of course, which is, of course, just proximate east of Dan Foley Park. And it makes all the sense in the world, of course, to replace and put their parking in the southerly portion of the site. For the interim, we know the county controls the site, and the county controls the lease, and that lease terms out in 2024. So we want to make sure that the county stays in lead position in dictating what they want to see and what they want to offer for future parking for Six Flags. We fully support Six Flags. I certainly, we'll get to that in a second, but I certainly express full appreciation for and excitement for what Six Flags brings to this community. So obviously we position retail there. We're not showing a parking in our plan, but per se, just assume that red box is gone and there's the parking right there. Next slide, please. As Richard talked about community outreach, we'll talk about kind of some outreach that we've performed. And again, a little bit constrained with regards to when you don't control property, you don't feel proper to execute and finalize contracts and leases with third parties. Again, always staying in that master developer rule, we will. So we did obviously quite a bit of entertainment outreach. We did not necessarily demand or suggest a grouping of these. We certainly are kind of identifying as pieces and parts, but we do think there's room for one or two of these uses potentially. We, of course, what we've proposed in our plan is to work with a company, Silver Lakes, that does a wonderful artificial turf field complex for mainly soccer. We can incorporate some other sports, but it's mainly a soccer complex. Also offers a lot of multi-use space, bar, restaurant, really a full energy, full encompassing multi-use space that we believe complements the fair extremely well, and there could be a lot of interplay between the two. As Richard alluded to, we've been, of course, engaged with Norman Golf. They have an entertainment golf. They can do small format golf, commercial golf, virtual golf, and also they've branded and built 2 wakeboarding parks in South Carolina and are welcoming the opportunity to examine that as well. That's basically where folks learn how to wakeboard, getting towed around this wonderful lake feature. We certainly reached out to Six Flags very early on in the process, and I know Mike's back here, and thanks for being here, Mike. Obviously understood there was some interest potentially in licensing a water park and maybe being an operator for such, as well as calling the other RFQ proponent on the sound studio. I think I heard earlier, and I don't know if I heard it right, if this group, SHM, Stephen Smith, is contemplating building a sound studio in American Canyon. That's news to us. But about a month ago, he expressed interest in working with us. So if the sound studio is truly of interest to you, then that group was of interest, as I heard in the RFQ. Certainly, we're willing to incorporate them, but we did not show them on our plan because we just didn't want to bake anything in without being in a position to be able to collaborate with you all. Obviously, we have constant outreach with our multiple local retail projects. in the national and global sectors of retail, is Fairview at Northgate, right across the freeway from this property. We've obviously done extensive marketing of that site and really understand that there's really a large range and broad range, especially of restaurants that do want to come into this market under the right setting and terms. Another very critical aspect and will certainly reveal the success of this project is our existing relationships with your local labor organizations. We know that the City of Vallejo and Solano County does a lot of times rely on labor organizations that promote local employment and fair wages is very critically important to this community. We have a deep understanding and deep relationships with those labor organizations to make sure that we can feasibly, in an economic sense, bring them in the project in a balanced manner that won't upset the financial feasibility of their overall project, which we've done successfully in several projects here in Solano County. Next slide, please. So implementation to us is as important, if not more important, than vision. I mean, we have tremendous vision. We loved a lot of the ideas we've heard. We've hopefully created a lot of great ideas as well. But we want to see this thing get built, and we believe you too. And so, first thing we want to do is we know there's a planning effort, but we don't want to fully reinvent the wheel. So we've really tried to stay as much as we felt appropriate within the confines of your specific plan. It was approved in 2013. But 7 years have gone by, so certainly updates and changes should be there. Obviously, our experience, as Richard alluded to, in Fairview, where we have received now and procured our final entitlement and EIR approvals, we've been here. We've been working with the City of Vallejo. We understand the rules, the processes, who to talk to, how to get things done. Regional traffic. Traffic is one of the biggest issues surrounding this site and surrounding Vallejo. We just recently, I think, besides the EIR general plan, probably just processed the largest and most comprehensive traffic study across the freeway and have a full and deep understanding of the correct traffic constraints and the improvements that are necessary to allow traffic to improve in this area. Our project team includes your project team. McKay and Thompson NGO are our consultants working on Fairview. We've worked with those two firms for decades, and they have absolute great detailed knowledge of the planning, engineering, and geotechnical concerns on your property, and we do too, because we've been working with them for several years looking at this property. Obviously, we've thought a lot about infrastructure and challenges because, again, we're thinking about how are we going to implement this site, how are we going to fund this infrastructure, and therefore that's forced us to really look at as many cost-saving opportunities in order to implement this property. And, certainly we feel like a collage of entertainment and transit options are really exciting and really get us excited too. But, I mean, we've heard that those are kind of concept and maybe not as well baked as we thought, but all of those are financial constraints to the upfront development. They all add value on the long term, but they will not be the catalyst that puts this project in motion. We'll allude to that economic engine in a moment that Richard also said. So again, that last quote is, my quote. I shouldn't quote myself, but I am. Our conceptual plan can be implemented in today's marketplace. Again, we think making sure you plan something in today's market, execute on today to make sure it can be executed on and built today. Talking about development phasing a little bit, just obviously both plans are seemingly leaning on residential to be the catalyst to initiate infrastructure and development. And that mixed use component and that additive complementary retail and the entertainment format of restaurants and bars and other adult and family entertainment options in that kind of Main Street village to the north of the Water Canal as you come in off of 37, is critical in the fact because of the upfront infrastructure that Mr. Spearing alluded to moments ago. Obviously, we want to certainly look at, who's also most impacted by phased construction. So getting the residential, if it's going to occur on this property, out in front, on the front end a little bit, is very important. But we don't want to sound like we're making residential the focal point of this project. That's not the case, but it is an economic engine, and you've now heard that from another party, your two finalists today. On the next slide, please, I think. Yes. So a rough phasing plan here. Obviously, I'm sorry I had to tilt it on the side because of James' strict formatting requirements. So our first phase here, obviously, it shows our care and desire to improve the infrastructure to serve the fair and to deliver, of course, what we ultimately want to deliver, which is that entertainment urban mixed-use village. And you notice there's a horseshoe there formed. Of course, we believe that water feature needs to come in the first phase, not just to create that iconic feature and that sense of place immediately, but also from a very important engineering perspective, which I'll talk about momentarily. And then obviously, as we move into our phase 2, which we use Roman numerals in yellow there, you can see we're starting to really pick up the rest of that entertainment retail and extending Phase 2 and extending Fairgrounds Drive, which we think is a critical component to get rid of that two-lane bottleneck, which I'll get into in a moment. And then offering really a west to east transition into Phase 3 in that kind of reddish-orangish color, let's say. And what that also does is, we also want to do the field complex. However, we are open to a series, and there may be better entertainment options. And by placing that in the third phase, it allows us to collaborate, not stall the improvements, not stall the infrastructure planning while we're going, gets things in motion, but continues to allow us to collaborate. So in a few years after those initial phases are done, we can now implement what we all feel is financially viable and feasible and really creates and hits the home run out here at Solano 360 from an entertainment standpoint, especially on the Handley parcel. Thank you. I'm almost done. Thanks, James. I could even take a breath for a minute. But I can't take a breath. So mass grading, when we talk about the key infrastructure components of this plan, again, which we've been examining for 5 or 6 years, the grading is so utterly critical on this property, and you really need to take a comprehensive approach. What you don't want to do is leave some portion of it in a hold. It can never be redeveloped in the future. So our approach would be really to grade the property as you demoed the whole property, probably for similar reasons, to make sure that the site balances as best as possible and that the site remains developable and we don't leave anything in a hole going forward. Of course, the water feature, being in that first phase, is definitely going to be a very important import source, meaning the site needs material. Also, with the groundwater being quite shallow and a fluctuating seasonal condition out here, we recognize that water feature can act as a great opportunity for dewatering, water treatment as we engineer and construct the site. Also, of course, there are lots of engineered fills and compressible soils, almost up to 1 million cubic yards on this land. And to have a deep understanding, I'm a geologist myself, but a deep understanding of those soils and the conditions, not just from how to grade it, but also from a foundation perspective, not putting too big or deep or large of structures on the site is important because it's not structurally that sound, unfortunately, if you go too much from massing, or your foundation costs will just get incredibly rich there. Fairgrounds Drive, we think, is a critical important. I mentioned our regional traffic understanding. I say pop the cork there, sorry for the rude phrase, but what that basically means is there's a clear bottleneck where the transition downs from 4 to 2 lanes, and we want to make sure in implementing that residential sort of allows, again, that economic engine to construct Fairgrounds Drive, certainly, as well as the 24-inch water main that also would need to go in there. This next one's very critically important, maybe one of the most important parts of this development, and that's the existing 12-inch steel gas main that runs through the property. On a 50-acre site across the freeway, we have a cost of $3.5 million to relocate that line. It's 3 times the length on this project. So it's going to be very critically important to try to preserve that existing 12-inch gas line that almost runs up the spine of the site and maximize our preservation in place for that. Very critical, as well as some of the existing and sewer storm drain mains. So again, hopefully this is evidence that we certainly have done more homework than probably was expected here, I should say. But with being across the street and looking at the site for this long, I mean, this hopefully shows you how ready and we are willing to move forward and advance construction of this site. And I don't mean to borrow the statement, but certainly, Aaron, if you were to ask us about the perimeter trail system or the perimeter water feature or drainage system, we understand that certainly that's serving wetland mitigation, drainage, water quality, and we also want to make that a recreation element. That has a great opportunity for a perimeter trail system. We incorporate perimeter trails or island trails in our communities and our projects as best as possible, and that's exactly what that would become. Great, and last slide to finish it up here. So again, just to re-highlight, why we believe Lewis Plan Communities is your best choice for Solano 360. And first and foremost, we self-finance projects, which means it's our investment, Mr. Lewis's investment. However, we share the benefits, and you will share the benefits and upgrades of our investment. We're privately held, which gives us great flexibility and expedited decision-making. We have the development expertise and the bank sitting right here to my right, so therefore decisions can be made very quickly and will not be stalled. Obviously, the Lewis family has always sought long-term investment opportunities and goals. I mean, that immediately creates a mutuality of interest with us in the county. And we think that's critically important to not think about what can be, not saying the other group was doing this, but what can be put out there and then, back out. I mean, we want to be on this property. We want to be a team member. We want to be a participant in a partnership truly with the county on the property and ensuring the county and the city. Certainly, as Richard alluded to, we have I don't know who has more local experience in the city. Am I about done? Local experience in the city, and I'll just wrap up in 2 seconds. Thank you. And obviously, we have many recent local successes, and we're community development experts. And I'm sorry to be running a little long, but the most important aspect of the site from an economic standpoint is the introduction of housing. And here you have Lewis Plan Communities, housing experts ready to be your master developer. Again, housing is not the centerpiece of this project. However, it is the economic engine, and who better to understand how to put that forth. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. We're ready for any questions.
Okay, good. Supervisor Sperry?
Well, I appreciate the, you really got down into the weeds on the technical side of it, and I feel the plan lacks, the vision that, I was kind of hoping to hear that you would bring to the project. Just as I look at the conceptual plan, it looks like the south side is a housing subdivision with a park. And so how do you see that benefiting both the city or the county in the long term, that the south side of this project?
Well, for a couple of reasons. The first point is to allude to is, of course, that we talk about the highest and best use and what creates the highest value to be able to really charge and pay for a lot of that infrastructure. And housing, nonetheless, will serve a lot of community and economic benefits accordingly. So it's not meant to be just a subdivision. I mean, this is meant to be something that the city of Vallejo has not seen before in regards to creating very urban format housing. When you're driving by the freeway, it's such that you wouldn't even know it's housing because it looks like big, massive structures in an urban contemporary format or any sort of architectural facades, which we certainly have bantered around a series of complementary architectural facades as well in these sites. But I mean, it's certainly when we develop communities, it's much more than about housing. It's about activity space. It's about gathering spaces. It's about active, healthy communities. We have harvest agricultural themed communities we've developed. So, it's not just going to be a subdivision. It's going to very much be made into a place. Like I said, I don't even think it will really look that much like a residential project when you're going by it.
Yeah, and I mean, just from your plans and reading through the presentation, I don't see where you're incorporating or integrating this theme throughout. It really seems to be like two separate projects, and so that was an area of concern, the way this was presented. Another question is, that it's a good possibility the fair is going to be a 5-day event, and so that property where the fair currently is going to become available. How would you envision using that property, and how would that fit into your phasing?
Well, as we showed on our phasing, certainly the first phase is to open up a lot of the transportation corridors in and out to access the fair much better. To us, and certainly one of the reasons that we chose to leave the fair in place is because it's not getting so many events, and it didn't seem prudent for us to invest dollars for a five-day event a year type facility. So, we want to support and keep the fair open as long as possible, but, we have concerns like every other county has concerns about the longevities of these fairs. We're going to do what we can to improve around it, certainly add some multi-use space to the south as our plan shows, but we're not renovating the fair in this. We're going to set up great access and opportunity for the fair, build the complementary project that will hopefully bring more users and residents to the fair. But we certainly, with our plan today, are not certainly renovating or rebuilding the fair.
I mean, so would you have plans to develop that property for some other use? I mean, that's the question I'm asking.
We know we want to make sure we fully respect the fair as it is today by opening up and the expansive infrastructure and access into that site. We are absolutely allowing for full redevelopment of that site to almost any use, with the streets being sized, the utilities being sized appropriately to serve that property. So we definitely have the future long-term goals of what may happen or not happen with that fair.
Okay, and the water feature, what phase does that infrastructure get put in?
Well, the water feature, we feel it's important. It's going to be just about necessary to dig that basin in phase 1. So certainly, while we aren't saying we want to fill that and keep it full of water until some of the development kind of comes along, but we want to dig that basin with the first phase. And the reason for that, again, is because it services great engineering solutions to the property from a grading, generation of dirt, and dewatering and water quality efforts. So certainly when the projects in phase 2 start developing around that, that's really when you'd see the landscaping go in, when you'd see that lake getting filled by hopefully non-potable water source that we think we've identified nearby. And so I'd say that lake would really come on in phase 2, but we would excavate it, and the lake shape would take up in phase 1.
And can this project be still developed with less housing than the amount of housing that you're showing?
There's definitely flexibility in the plan from that perspective. Again, you have our pro forma, so certainly you see the importance of that residential to help pay for that backbone infrastructure. But as I mentioned, Jim, we are very flexible and open to concepts. We're very flexible to backing down housing and trying to improve upon or expand commercial uses. Again, that's part of the collaboration effort. We want to certainly show the benefits and the detriments of doing those types of things. But I certainly am not here to say that there has to be that many units for us to be interested in this property.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it goes without saying, if we wanted housing, this property would have been developed a long time ago.
That is correct.
For sure. Yeah, but see, looking at this drawing, this is making my point, how the waterfront development mostly is on the left side of this drawing. You show no integration into the housing side, and that's a concern that I have, is that whatever this theme is has to be carried throughout the whole project, and so I'm not seeing that, and so I'm assuming that there's some flexibility that you guys would be looking at how we could integrate that in, or how that would be redesigned.
Very much so. And our project in Hercules that Richard alluded to, where we have a very attractive, iconic, award-winning mixed use, but mostly residential. We have some work-live units down there. I highly advise you all to go look at it. Of course, you'll make your decision before you can. But, you know, that's basically what that represented, is that theme throughout the community. We certainly are community developers, so in all of our retail, commercial, entertainment, housing, we understand common themes will be very important. I mean, the idea of a ring trail around the project along the drainage is important, but the more critically is a boardwalk ring trail of sorts around the water feature around both sides. And I understand that we have maybe a retail and restaurant sitting on a waterfront on one side and housing sitting on that other side, but what's not really shown in great detail is that we have that's publicly accessible space on the south side as well as the north side. You know, that's going to be a place, walking trails, bike trails open to the public, not just to the residents out here or anywhere else. So certainly the recreation opportunities will exist, but I totally understand what you're saying, and please know that we also, of course, remain very flexible. If the county is looking for face-to-face over water retail, we're certainly happy and willing to consider that and examine that with you.
And it looks like you didn't put a lot of emphasis on interfacing with Six Flags, or, you know, what are your thoughts there on that?
Well, we want to make sure Six Flags is successful because, as alluded to in the prior presentation, they are right now the traffic delivery to this area. Obviously, by putting the parking in the south end to match up there, you know, we've offered a potential opportunity for the county to offer up long-term lease space there as well, and we can facilitate that within our plan. You know, in our conversation with Six Flags, you know, I certainly shared my personal experiences growing up in Marine World Africa USA. They kind of chuckled when I was saying that, but, you know, the Skyway thought, of course we all thought, but I don't know if that's going to be financially feasible. So it's really, you know, we look at the way to complement Six Flags is to make this area more accessible, to build the infrastructure, to serve both sides, and to build that and promote that complementary retail, not to compete with, but definitely to offer multiple and very different entertainment attractions to try to generate more overnight stays to support the hospitality elements.
Okay, and my last question is, if I lived in San Jose, what would be the iconic feature that would draw me to this site?
If you lived in San Jose, what would be the iconic feature?
I could live in San Francisco, any place.
Okay, so if you live in an extremely urban
any
area.
Place, what iconic feature would draw me to this site that would say, hey, let's go up to that Vallejo 360 site?
Well, probably if you're in a core area, you have probably better mixed-use urban options to go through. So it would certainly have to be, in this case, probably our field complex to some degree would draw them up. Certainly having conference space in that hotel, which is desperately needed, would draw people up here as well. So the opportunity to have a nice place to come stay and visit for a multi-day use is probably the best answer I have there. But that's a good question. I should have thought about. I didn't have a chance to think about that one.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was a bad answer.
You made it. Councilwoman Dew.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I have comments, so. Okay. I appreciate the presentation, of course, and the depth of your knowledge in regards to the expenses involved in the costs in construction, particularly in my city. And, you know, the discussion about feasibility and, you know, market analysis, knowing what the market currently will bear in terms of product types and whatnot, that is a strong point in your presentation that was lacking from the last presentation. However, I do feel this presentation lacked more collaboration with Six Flags and with the film studios. I would have liked to have seen more integration with our local with that. And the overall vision, it's not as, you know, we're looking to have something just really iconic and legendary there that really draws from the whole Northern California region, and that scope of vision was a little bit lacking for me. That's all I have for now. Thanks.
All right, Hermie, Vice Mayor, you're up for questions.
Thank you, Supervisor. The Silver Lake complex that you had on your outreach page, what's that encompass?
Richard, do you want to talk about Silver Lakes in Norco? Do you want to talk about
That's soccer. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Silver Lakes is in the city of Norco, and it's a 26-field soccer complex, equestrian, that can be converted to equestrian center instantly. In pre-COVID, it was very successful, drew about 2 million people a year. It's mainly soccer, rugby, lacrosse, cross country, and it's mobbed on weekends. It attracts tournaments from out of the area, which attracts hotel rooms, which attracts restaurants. So it's been very successful.
Mm-hmm. Is it something you're thinking to have?
Yes. They're on our team.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. As far as anchor tenants, do you have any idea what you're looking for? Because it says on your outreach page again that you have an ongoing marketing efforts for Solano360. What have you seen so far that will fit your project at Solano360?
Thank you, Hermie. Obviously, the interest in we have a very different site in Fairview to some degree. However, with its freeway frontage and access and visibility, it does have a lot of similarities. And we're getting a lot of new business interest into your city, and that's what's very exciting for us. Businesses that I know are not here. In fact, one of the tenants will be revealing shortly on our Fairview project is a brand new restaurant that will be in your city. And so, obviously, our engagement across the board with, ethnic bakeries and restaurants and, activity space, activity or entertainment space, learning centers, it's been very robust on Fairview, and we definitely believe that will only be enhanced here and actually will allow us to get into also an additional series of potential interested users, especially in the restaurant space in that more urban setting and walkable setting than our project, which is not utterly walkable because it's in the middle of a retail enclave effectively. To your other point, obviously we have ongoing relationships. I mean, we are doing a Costco, as you very well know, across the freeway. So our outreach to major tenants, we think one of the biggest economic generators on the site will be sales tax revenue that we can create, and we want to bring large format shopping that does not exist here as well. So, we're not ready to daylight any specific users. It's very challenging to do that without full control of the property, and therefore, we're not ready to reveal any end users today, but the interest is very robust, and we're very excited.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and your interest in Solano360. Thank you, Supervisor. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate your questions. I did want to ask about the fields. We had a plan before us not too many years ago that attempted this concept, and there was a lot of challenges around that in terms of, is it enough fields? I mean, you say soccer fields, but you've got 7 fields and 4 baseballs, and I don't even want to, this isn't where I really want to focus, but it kind of seems to me as sort of this add-on. I guess my bigger question is Silver Lake the manager of these types of fields?
Yeah, they're
an operator?
They're the developer, owner, manager.
So they also operate?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, because that was one of the concerns we had early on, was like how to, who manages that activity?
And to answer the other question about it, I don't want that to be an afterthought. I mean, that was a critical component of our plan. It just happens to be looking like an afterthought because of where it's placed on the handler parcel, but that's, of course, because of those deed restrictions.
Okay. So the fairgrounds actually operates year-round. There's activity that happens there outside of the fair period of time. And one of the, you've chunked this all out of your plan, which I understand probably why. My concern is, if there's any revenue generated here, we're going to have to do some upgrades to the fair. So now you have essentially, if I take Supervisor Sparings, you have essentially 3 different things happening here, or maybe 4 if you include the field. How do you anticipate that happens for the county in terms of how we can fund or finance this public use?
Well, that's what we need to look at together. I mean, when this RFP came out, that site was effectively carved out, allowing flexibility to go in there, but we respected the RFP and RFQ boundaries is effectively what we've done. So that's what's shown on Solano360. That was what's shown on the RFP, and so we felt it was important to maintain that because you guys planned that and showed that. Certainly, if we're so selected, looking at all the economics across the board is going to be a critical aspect of this. And, if there is an opportunity to finance renovations in the fair, of course, we'd be willing to do it. But again, what was important to us is to make sure we brought you a plan today that could be built. Okay.
And as I asked the previous group, as far as the housing, and at this point I'm kind of concerned about the retail, is this an entitlement and do you build, or is this you entitle and you spin it off for somebody else to build?
Great question. And this is why we really think we're the best partner for you, is because we have built and still own some for many, many decades multifamily units. So it is our prerogative to go in there, to build, to own, to maintain with our award-winning property management firm. We want to be your long-term tenant. When I say long-term, that's what I mean. We want to be the one paying your lease revenue. We want to be the ones to build that housing, to own that housing, and to run the housing operations and leasing enterprise. Now, for sale housing, if there is any contemplated on the site, which we believe is a good component, but not a mandatory component, certainly that would be sold off to a third party. We don't build for sale homes. But any multifamily homes or retail, we typically like to be the owners of those on the long term, or at least be your tenant on those.
The company owns 95% of the apartments we've ever built, which is over 13,000.
So are these apartments or are they single-family residents? Same thing?
Well, both, but referring to the multifamily.
Gotcha. In your visitor serving area, you have a lot of red buildings. Is this is there retail with housing on top, or is it, you do show some concepts? I'm just kind of, if you could like clarify what your thoughts are there.
Yeah. So obviously, as you come in on Fairgrounds Drive off of 37, there's going to absolutely be great opportunities for vertical mixed use where you do have multifamily units over retail. So 2 levels, I don't think it's a 3 level, but 2 levels over retail, and that's where your kind of entertainment, adult and family entertainment retail types are. As you progress easterly off of Fairgrounds Drive, it's definitely going to be a derivative of the market as far as how much of that vertical mixed use you can employ and put on this property. Our objective is to make darn sure it's on Fairgrounds Drive and the waterfront. Our true objective is to make all of it that exact same format. The market will tell us if that's feasible or not. That's kind of the economics we want to look at with you guys. Our intention, and as we show it in portrayed, is that is all 2 levels of residential over retail.
Okay. And then one last comment. I'd have to agree with Councilwoman Dew in that the connectivity to Six Flags, I mean, there is a focus on the parking, which, you know, that's kind of one of those issues that we bear. You know, I wish we didn't have to, but it's okay. We do. But it really is important that we connect to Six Flags, and, you know, you've got that all the way down here at the south. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's this direct shot, if you will. So.
Well, if I may, kind of, that was a question, sort of, and I can respond also to Councilwoman Dew's comments there. I mean, we know this is your property, and we have great respect and idolization for Six Flags. But I mean, we want to do what you guys ultimately want to do with how you want to collaborate and make that connectivity, which all comes at a cost. If you want pedestrian connectivity with overpasses and those types of features, you know, those comes at great cost. And are you, as the Solano Implementation Committee, really willing to fund improvements that will benefit Six Flags? I don't know if Six Flags is willing to contribute towards any of this infrastructure. If they are, that's what will make those things possible. If they're not, it's going to make it very challenging for this project. And also, out of respect for both the county and the city, you know, we've talked to all these folks, but we didn't want to make promises or put fixed parameters in place of how we must collaborate, how we must incorporate, how we must work with specific users. This is the collaboration that we're absolutely seeking to do with you. So it's not that we've turned our backs on Six Flags. It's not that we've turned our backs on any of the entertainment users. The reason we didn't make a diligent effort to really engage, understand, and put those uses, those entertainment uses on our plan is because we're not yet convinced that they're economically feasible. I think we heard the prior group tell you those may not be economically feasible. And again, it was very important for us to come in and show you a plan that can be executed upon today, but can be improved upon if we can make it work financially.
Mm-hmm. I think part of that connectivity isn't necessarily to have a bridge or to force a bridge, but even to put the parking closer to, you know, where the entrance is to the particular site of Six Flags. So I think, you know, that to me, it's far away, you know. I mean, if you're there on any busy day at Six Flags, you've got strollers and wheelchairs and, I mean, the whole bit trying to get over there to the park where they're going to spend a lot more time walking, much like Disney and downtown Disney. So,
sure. And again, on that point, I mean, we are looking out for the interest of the county on this property. If the county wants to give up what may be more valuable portions to accommodate Six Flags, we're more than open to that. We just, in this plan, again, was really thinking about the economic short and long-term conclusions for the county, which is why we didn't want to necessarily isolate it. I mean, it is across the street from their existing parking, but they have definitely told us that is not even preferable. So we understand that there's some limitations with that.
Right. Okay. With that, we have all spoken at this point, and I guess I'd turn it over to James or Tom.
Sure. So if you want to continue dialogue, we have that on the agenda available to you. If you're ready to move into the other portions, we can do that as well. So we want to go to slide 6 of the county's presentation. And while it's getting set up, I'm going to let Tom take over from here and sort of talk about the RFP process. But I wanted to just give thanks to LaTanya Taranis, who's in the audience here today, Paul Kelly, both from the city. They sat on the work group that helped to evaluate and do a lot of background work to really analyze these proposals and get an understanding. We also had
well, before they leave, I want to thank you. Thank you for submitting the proposal. Thank you for
listening.
for sharing your proposal with us today.
Thank you very much.
What an honor.
Bob Burris from the EDC was also on the work group, so he provided a lot of input and knowledge with regards to economic development, some of the aspects that were very much of an interest to the county and the city on this site. Tom Sinclair is a consultant for the county. He also served as the sort of the ringleader as far as we went through the process, holding our feet to the fire to do the analysis based upon the criteria that we outlined, and really just, kept the direction going forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom. He's going to walk you through sort of the RFP process that we went through on a high level and how we scored. We'll give you an overview of our scoring, and then we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. Tom Sinclair with Management Advisory Services, and as James mentioned, I'm a consultant to the county right now, but over the past 2 decades, I've been a consultant to the city and the county, and now to the county. So we've been involved for a long time on this property. As you've just seen, we were very fortunate to have 2 very well thought out proposals for this property, and we appreciate the effort that has gone into it. The proposals were reviewed by a county, city, and Solano Economic Development Corporation staff. And we did so, first we evaluated the land use concept, the marketplace information, and asked ourselves the questions: does the land use concept achieve the objectives and the guiding principles of the specific plan? And what is the likelihood of success, and how long will it take to build out the property? We also evaluated the business terms, which were confidential, including lease rates, escalations in term, public agency financial participation if proposed, and public agency conduit financing, such as a CFD. Third, we considered the development financing. You've heard a little bit about that today. The overall financial capacity and capability, the evidence of debt and equity commitments, as well as a project pro forma, which shows costs, revenues, debt, equity, and rates of return. And finally, we looked at the employment and business impacts, including the quality of jobs, as well as the local business construction purchasing plans. Next slide, please. In order to do this evaluation, we did prepare an RFP that requested that the submittals include, for land use, a description of the overall development concept, which you've heard a lot about today, how the concept implements the specific plan, the site diagrams, charts identifying acreage, square footage, residential units, and other pertinent information, proposed architectural themes and character, and importantly, land uses that differ from the approved specific plan, and how those uses meet the guiding principles of the specific plan. And finally, we asked for a plan to provide infrastructure and utility connections to the fair and transit areas, as well as accommodation of parking overflow for Six Flags. Next slide, please. The RFP also asked for any available market studies and letters of interest or commitment from potential tenants and end users, and a project timeline, including key milestones and project phasing. And finally, we asked for estimates of constructions and permanent jobs, the character of the jobs, and any plans for local hiring or local purchasing of construction products. Some of the information, as James has mentioned, was submitted by the respondents, was considered to be proprietary and confidential, which were reviewed by the city, county, and Solano Economic Development Corporation representatives, but not provided to the public. These included the proposed lease rates and terms, the financial participation by public agencies or credits, and proposed financing techniques. We also, as I mentioned, asked for a demonstration of the financial capacity, debt and equity, and the project pro forma. So based upon what we asked for in the RFP, the submittals, and the evaluation criteria that we used, we came up with a work group evaluation by the 5 members of the work group that considered and evaluated the proposal. And James will take over that part of the
Sure. So the aggregate scoring for the teams was IRG JL scored 77 and Lewis Plan Committees scored 68. The key differentiators really came down to land plan and for sale versus not for sale housing and fully integration of the plan that met sort of the goals of the specific plan. The consensus from that group was that we recommend that the Implementation Committee forward a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to enter into an exclusive right to negotiate agreement with IRG JLL Group. And so with that, we would turn it back over to this committee for their deliberations and if they want to take action with regards to that. Next slide, please. Before you do that, sort of the next steps in our timeline is today we are in the Implementation Committee meeting. If a determination is made today, then staff will work towards pulling together a report to take to the Solano County Board of Supervisors, and at that point we would get authorization to begin negotiations of an ERN agreement. And so the timeline of that is that by the end of this year we will work through that process with a selected developer, and then in the coming year we'll do developer planning, negotiations, planning review, and ultimately the goal is to get an approved agreement and start this project, this really exciting project. So that's our sort of next steps timeline. And let me see anything else. And so next slide, please. So now we're at the point of for you to deliberate and then do the consideration of what staff is recommending.
All right, thank you, James. So we're bringing it back to the committee. Supervisor Sparing.
So is the intent, Madam Chair, to make a recommendation?
I think it would be prudent for us to do that today.
All right. First, I want to thank both presenters. I think they're two very good presentations. Two different approaches, and I probably shouldn't say what I'm going to say, but I think the familiarity with the project, I think, really worked as a disadvantage to Lewis Homes. I think that it kind of constrained their vision of the project, their technical side. I think the ability to deliver that project certainly is in their presentation, and I think the way they're presenting it, I think, could be developed. But the areas that I felt that the IRG and JL had a much stronger presentation, and I think meeting more of the objectives of what I've always been envisioning, and it's that Main Street concept that they talked about, and which that synergy and that action that that it really brings to this project, I thought was very important. The flexible uses, putting in a project that, if a business doesn't succeed, one can fill that space fairly quickly. And I really thought that concept is very important in today's market. The Six Flags integration, I felt was very critical, and I felt the Lewis Homes was very weak on that piece. I don't think it needs to be Six Flags centric, but it certainly is a draw, and it's one that we need to make sure is successful too, and it's a way to enhance that. The response to the development of the area of the fair, the additional uses, the lack of integration in the Lewis plan. I really felt there should have been a lot more consideration that if the fair isn't there, what would you do with that property? And the response was, I felt that that it wasn't something they had thought about. I like the commercial core piece, the way that is being developed on the site, and so those are just some of the reasons that I saw in the proposal. And I just, the IRG JLL, it has an enthusiasm about it, a vision about it. They really understood the iconic concept of bringing people there, and then they decide what they might want to do. I think that their proposal lends itself to that. And but I have a tremendous appreciation for Lewis Homes. I mean, they've been great partners in Solano County and have done great work, but I'm just not quite sure that they're the right fit for this project. So that's where I am today.
Thank you, Supervisor. Councilmember Dew?
Thank you. I feel very much similarly as to Supervisor Sparing's comments. I really did enjoy the activation of the vision of JLL Group's proposal, just really seeing how it all ties together and flows well was really exciting to see. And I agree. I feel that the technical knowledge that Lewis Group had kind of locked their ability to see beyond that vision. And as I said earlier, I just really was disappointed that they didn't collaborate much more with Six Flags as well as with the film studios. And but I do feel there's value in that technical knowledge that they have. So I heard JLL mention that perhaps there could be a partnership, so I would be open to that. But I do feel that for the recommendation, purposes of the recommendation, I would be recommending JLL.
Okay. Vice Mayor Sunga?
Yeah, I share the same feeling. I personally want to see Lewis to get it, but they just didn't support the Six Flags visions that we have, as far as especially in providing additional closer parking to them, and that's just important to me because Six Flags is one of our top taxpayer in the city of Vallejo, and I want to see collaboration as far as whoever proposed Solano360 to consider Six Flags as a priority as far as helping them thrive. But Louis did not do that, I don't think. And JNL, I'm hopeful that they will live up to what they said. I think that's a pretty good program. I like their flexibility in implementing the project, so I would go with staff's recommendation on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have to agree with my colleagues here. I mean, it just doesn't seem like there's. We graded the land really for developers to be able to look at it with a clear vision and a new concept. And that was one of the challenges that we had before, because we had, the 1,000 horse barns and the track and all those dilapidated buildings that were a part of that process, that was which was the attraction 60 years ago in our community. And so getting rid of those structures and grading the land, to give that new vision. And I don't feel that Lewis Homes brought that. I mean, in some ways, and this might be kind of crass, but it feels like it's a housing development with a strip mall attached to it. And I just feel that that's not really what we're doing here. So that is a concern of mine. But I do, clearly Lewis Homes is a player in our county and is friendly with IRG and JL. That this might, there might be a connection that you might be able to be a part of a project going forward. But I too will support the recommendation to go forward with IRG and JLL. And with that, we're actually going to take a vote. It's going to be a roll call vote because we have Vice Mayor Sunga on the phone. And so with that, I'll ask the clerk to move forward if we're ready. Okay. What? Well, Jim will do the motion.
I'll move that we proceed with the negotiations with IRG, JLL, and for the next phase of development of this project. That would be the motion.
All right, we've got a motion and a second.
Sorry. Supervisor Sparing?
Aye.
Councilmember Dew?
Aye.
Councilmember Sunga?
Aye.
And Chairwoman Hannigan?
Yes.
So moved by a vote of 4-0.
Great. Thank you. All right, so there's going to be a lot of work that's going to happen between now and the end of the year with our team, and I appreciate. I do want to thank both of the proposers, and we look forward to working with IRG and JLL in the future. And again, as the agenda shows, we will have a suggested adjournment till Thursday, January 22nd at 1:30 in the afternoon. So with that, Vice Mayor Sunga, thank you for calling in. I really appreciate your comments and you being here and a part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Have a great night.